We begin with some breaking news. Special Counsel Jack Smith proposing a date for former President Trump's trial on charges related to election interference.
That's right. Newsmax correspondent, brand new member of our team here at Newsmax, Bob Brooks, joins us now with more. Bob.
Yeah, Bob and Katrina, good to be here. Breaking news again. This just came down a few minutes ago, so we're still trying to sort through these details, but here's what we know so far. The U.S. Special Counsel Jack Smith's office is now seeking a trial date of January 2nd in the 2020 election case against former President Trump. Smith is predicting this can go to trial relatively quickly for a case of such magnitude. He said that he's hoping for it to go no longer than 4 to 6 weeks. And there's a small group of classified documents that Smith says won't hinder the legal process here. But basically what he's saying is that he's going to try and move fast with this prosecution against the former president of the United States, Donald Trump. In his office, he even took a dig at the former president, who has argued for time, to prepare for a new defense for an entirely new case. Well, the special counsel argued that the president has seen tons of evidence presented by the January 6th committee, and he's been in contact with the DOJ for months. Now, all the lawyers, but not President Trump, are back in Judge Chutkan's court tomorrow in D.C. That's set for 10 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. And the former president's legal team, we know they've been shuffling and shuttling back and forth from Florida in the other case brought by the special counsel, and they were just there today handling the not guilty plea in the superseding indictment of handling of classified documents. Well, Trump's lawyers asked Judge Chutkan in D.C. to take the two cases into consideration while scheduling hearings this week, but so far, she has stuck to the schedule preferred by Special Counsel Jack Smith. Katrina, Bob, back to you.
Yeah, it's going to be quite a battle. Thank you very much, Bob, and welcome to American Agenda and to Newsmax. Great to have you here.
Yeah, and I have to say, Bob is from Philadelphia, so we will be hearing a lot more of Go Birds. I maybe wore Eagles colors in honor of Bob's first day here today.
We have that to look forward to.
Oh, yeah.
All right, joining us right now, 2024 Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. Thank you very much. By the way, we definitely want to talk about you, but I wanted to get your reaction to what a lot of people look like kind of a one-sided effort so far, at least in this case out of Washington, D.C., with the former president now asking for a case that could last 4 to 6 weeks and go January 2nd. Your thoughts about that?
I have said this at the time. I'm saying it again. This is a politicized persecution through prosecution against one man. And if his last name were not Trump, there's no chance they'd be bringing any of these cases against him. I say this as somebody who is running in the same election as Trump. I'm polling now at third decisively across the national polls. It would be easier for me if Donald Trump were not in this race. But that is not how I want to win. We should not have a federal administrative police state that eliminates its opponents from competition. That's not how we do things in the United States, and that's why I'm dead set against it. And I have said clearly that I will pardon Trump on my day one in office.
Vivek, again, great to have you here with us on American Agenda. I want to get some thoughts about the Vivek Ramaswamy approach to governing the United States. Crime is something that is on so many or most minds of Americans. And we recently have been hearing about an uptick in violence around the country, not just in the major cities. How would you address crime?
I think we have to get to the root causes. One is illegal migration across our own southern border. Seal that southern border. There are literally armed cartel gunmen coming across our own southern border, not to mention fentanyl and other drugs, human trafficking, illegal migrants, people who by definition are willing to break the law, are coming in by the tens of thousands daily, weekly, and hundreds of thousands monthly. That has to end. The second root cause is the mental health epidemic in our country. We have seen a directly inverse correlation between the rise of violent crime and the closure of psychiatric institutions. That's a third rail you're not supposed to talk about as a politician. I'm not afraid to take it on. I think we need to reopen psychiatric institutions to handle the mental health and psychiatric illness epidemic across our country.
One of the things I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, between some common sense policies at the border, psychiatric institutions, restoring law and order, not tying the hands of police officers doing their jobs in our cities, I am confident that as president, I will be able to get violent crime back in control in this country.
One of the things you talk about is that you want to dismantle LBJ's A Great Society. And I was kind of curious about that because there's some people that are on the other side of those programs, such as receive Social Security, Medicare, that sort of thing. How would you address those? Because you're a business guy. Obviously, you want to rein in cost, and you've talked about that. How would you affect those particular programs?
So for Social Security and Medicare, I have been rock solid on this. No cuts for seniors, no cuts for seniors. No cuts for seniors who have paid into that program and have to be given what they have been obliged to by the government. That has to be rock solid. However, many parts of the Great Society are leaving people worse off by giving them payments. I'll give you an example. Paying single mothers in the inner city more money not to have a man in the house than to have a married two-parent household. We're creating the disincentives for family formation. We're creating incentives for an epidemic of fatherlessness. 25% of kids born into fatherless homes, paying people more not to repay their student debts than to repay their student debts, paying people more not to work than to actually go to work. That's what I want to fix, is many parts of that so-called Lyndon Johnson Great Society, we're paying people to do the exact opposite of what's best for them. So Social Security and Medicare, we're not going to reduce any benefits for seniors. To the contrary, we have to stand by those commitments. But when it comes to paying people not to get married or not be single mothers or pay people more not to repay their student debts or not to go back to work, no, that's what I'm going to fix.
Fair enough.
And that's how we actually revive our economy.
Yeah, and Vivek, also, I want to bring up the abortion issue because earlier this week in Ohio, Ohio voters voted against a ballot measure that would have made it more difficult for people to get abortions. Obviously, a very big topic that will be discussed a lot in this upcoming election cycle. Where do you stand on the issue of abortion?
I'm unapologetically pro-life. I also believe that if we walk the walk in being pro-life, we will bring more people along with us. Let's talk about adoption. Let's talk about crisis pregnancy health centers. Let's talk about actually a real conversation about childcare, a path for women to get to yes. And I also talk a lot about sexual responsibility for men in an era of genetic paternity tests. Let's tie the law to greater consequences for men. That's how we turn this from being about a women's rights versus men's rights issue into a human rights issue. And I'll give you a good example of this where most Americans share pro-life instincts, is that there's a case of a pregnant woman walking down the street. She's assaulted. The unborn child dies as a result. There is not a single American I have met who has said that that criminal doesn't deserve liability for the death of that life. That says we share pro-life instincts in common. But as a member of my generation, I'm the youngest person ever to run for president in a major political party, to my knowledge. What I'm doing is leading us forward by actually walking the walk of being pro-life without compromising on our principles.
So you feel, just to clarify, so do you believe in abortion in situations of rape or incest, or are you 100% against abortion?
In my personal life, I'm 100% against it. As a matter of policy, if we're codifying laws at the state level, for now, I think that it is necessary to be able to at least accept the societal compromises we've discussed on rape and incest, certainly in minors as well. But that's different from what my personal values and beliefs are. But I think that if we're able to get to laws like those that have been passed in Iowa and in other states, I think that should be a states first issue. I think this should be an issue driven by the states, and I support that.
You favor something you call civic duty voting. It's an interesting concept. Talk about that, because it affects people between the ages of 18 and 25 in a different way. Explain
Well, it actually affects everybody, and I'll tell you how it affects everyone.
Okay.
So my view is every high school student who graduates from 12th grade should have to pass the same civics test that every immigrant has to pass in order to become a citizen of this country. Young people have lost national pride. We're in a crisis of national pride today. 25%, less than 25% of young Americans say they're even remotely proud to be American. We have a 25% recruitment deficit in our U.S. military. Over 60% of young Americans say they would sooner give up their access to vote than to give up their access to TikTok. That's disastrous. And so I think part of the reason why is young people don't know about the history of our country. They're taught to hate our country rather than to know about our actual history. And so my view is if we require that of immigrants, then yes, we should require that of our own citizens too. And the best way to start is with the next generation. So I think every young American, every person who ages into citizenship should either have to pass that test or at minimum serve the country for 6 months in either a first responder role or in the U.S. military. You got to have skin in the game to play in the game. I'm a nationalist, and that's part of what it means.
All right, Vivek Ramaswamy, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you in the upcoming GOP debate.